The rain came down in sheets, drumming against the roof of my small craftsman house in Willow Creek, Oregon, as if the sky itself was grieving. I stood at my kitchen window, staring at the moving truck parked next door, its red taillights glowing like embers in the storm. Whoever was moving in was braving a tempest, and I couldn't help but wonder what kind of person would choose a night like this to start over. My name is Elliot Harper, a 32-year-old graphic designer who fled Seattle's chaos for this quiet town, chasing peace after a breakup that left my heart in shards. Willow Creek was supposed to be my fresh start, a place to heal, to focus on my freelance work and maybe adopt a dog. But as I watched the truck's doors swing open, revealing a tall figure wrestling with a tarp in the downpour, I felt a spark of curiosity that hadn't flickered in years. The man was soaked, his flannel shirt clinging to broad shoulders as he hauled boxes with a kind of stubborn grace. A smaller figure darted out next, a boy no older than 8, clutching a soccer ball and laughing despite the rain. The man shouted something, his voice warm but firm, and the boy scurried under the porch. I smiled, caught off guard by the scene. There was something raw, something alive about them, like they were carving out a new world in the middle of the storm. The next morning, sunlight spilled through my curtains, and I stepped outside to find the boy kicking his ball against the fence separating our yards. He had a mop of curly brown hair and eyes that sparkled with mischief. "Hey, mister," he called, waving like we were old friends. "You got a dog?" "Dad says we can't get one yet, but I'm working on him." I laughed, leaning against the fence. "No dog yet, but I'm thinking about it. I'm Elliot. You must be the new neighbor." "I'm Caleb," he said, puffing out his chest. "And that's my dad, James. He's cool, but he's kinda grumpy when he's tired. Don't tell him I said that." Before I could respond, the man from last night appeared, wiping his hands on a rag. Up close, James Turner was striking rugged jawline, piercing blue eyes, and a faint scar above his left eyebrow that hinted at stories untold. He was in his late 30s, I guessed, with a quiet intensity that made my pulse quicken. "Caleb, stop bothering the neighbor," he said, but his tone was soft, and his gaze lingered on me a beat too long. "No bother," I said, offering a smile. "I'm Elliot Harper. Welcome to Willow Creek." "James Turner," he replied, shaking my hand. His grip was warm, steady, and sent a jolt through me I wasn't prepared for. "Sorry about the noise last night. Moving in a storm wasn't my brightest idea." "Made for a dramatic entrance," I teased, and his laugh, low and genuine, felt like a gift. Over the next few weeks, James and Caleb became a fixture in my life. Caleb would bound over to my yard, asking for help with his soccer tricks or regaling me with tales of his old school in Portland. James was quieter, reserved, but he'd linger when he came to fetch Caleb, our conversations stretching longer each time. He was a single dad, he told me one evening over coffee on my porch, raising Caleb alone since his wife passed 3 years ago. The grief was still there, etched in the lines around his eyes, but so was a fierce love for his son and a cautious hope I couldn't stop noticing. I learned James was a carpenter, his hands calloused from years of crafting furniture that carried the kind of soul mass-produced pieces lacked. He'd moved to Willow Creek for a slower pace, a chance to give Caleb stability. "Portland was too loud," he said one night, his voice low as we sat under the stars. "Too many ghosts." I nodded, understanding more than I said. My own ghosts' memories of my ex, Ryan, who'd cheated and left me questioning everything, still haunted me. But with James, those shadows felt lighter, like they might one day dissolve. One crisp October afternoon, Caleb invited me to their house for dinner. "Dad's making spaghetti," he announced, tugging my arm. You gotta come. He's not as boring as he looks. Caleb, James groaned, but his eyes crinkled with amusement. I agreed, and that night, their small dining room glowed with warmth. Caleb chattered nonstop, sauce smudged on his chin, while James and I stole glances over the table. Every brush of his knee against mine under the table felt electric, deliberate, though neither of us acknowledged it. After dinner, Caleb dragged me to see his room, a chaotic shrine to soccer and comic books. You're cool, Elliot, he said, flopping onto his bed. You should hang out with us all the time. Like, forever. My heart stuttered. Forever's a big word. Buddy, I said, ruffling his hair. Yeah, but Dad likes you, he whispered, like it was a secret. He smiles more when you're around. I didn't know how to respond, but Caleb's words lodged in my chest, warm and heavy. When I returned to the living room, James was washing dishes, his sleeves rolled up, humming softly. I offered to help, and as we stood side by side, our shoulders brushing, the air felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. Elliot, he said quietly, not looking at me, I'm glad you're here. My breath caught. Me too, James. That night, as I lay in bed, Caleb's words echoed. He smiles more when you're around. I wanted to believe it, but doubt gnawed at me. James was straight, wasn't he? A widower, a dad, a man carrying a past I could only glimpse. Yet every look, every lingering touch, told a different story, one I was terrified to hope for. The next day, Caleb bounded into my yard again, his soccer ball under one arm. Elliot, he called, grinning. When are you moving into our house? I froze, laughter dying in my throat. What? You and Dad are going to be best friends forever, right? He said, eyes wide. So you should just live with us. My heart raced, torn between warmth and panic. Caleb's innocence was a mirror, reflecting a truth I wasn't ready to face. I glanced toward James's house, where he stood on the porch, watching us with an unreadable expression. And in that moment, I knew whatever was growing between us wasn't just friendship. It was something deeper, something that could change everything or break us apart. The days grew shorter, the air sharper, as Willow Creek slipped deeper into autumn. Leaves blanketed the ground, and every morning, I woke to the sound of Caleb's soccer ball thumping against the fence, a rhythm as steady as my growing feelings for James. But with every step closer we took, the weight of what we hadn't said pressed heavier, like a stone in my chest. One evening, James invited me to a local harvest festival, a Willow Creek tradition filled with hayrides, pumpkin carving, and bonfires. Caleb insisted I join them, his enthusiasm infectious. You gotta come, Elliot. Dad says there's gonna be Eskimo race. I couldn't say no, not to Caleb's grin or the quiet hope in James's eyes. At the festival, the air smelled of cinnamon and wood smoke. Caleb darted ahead, joining a group of kids in a hay maze, leaving James and me to wander the stalls. We shared a caramel apple, our fingers brushing as we passed it back and forth, and I caught James watching me, his gaze soft but searching. You're good with him, he said, nodding toward Caleb, who was now waving from the top of a hay bale. Not everyone knows how to handle his energy. He's a great kid, I said, meaning it. He's lucky to have you. James's smile faltered, and he looked away, his voice dropping. I don't always feel like enough. After Sarah's mom died, I thought I'd never figure out how to be both parents. I'm still learning. The vulnerability in his words cracked something open in me. I wanted to reach out, to tell him he was more than enough, but the words caught in my throat, Instead, I nudged his shoulder. "You're doing better than you think, James." He looked at me then, really looked, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just us 12 men standing in a crowd, caught in a current neither of us could name. The moment broke when Caleb ran back, tugging us toward the bonfire. We sat on a log, Caleb sandwiched between us, roasting marshmallows as sparks floated into the night. When Caleb's head drooped against my arm, exhausted, James draped a blanket over him, his fingers grazing mine. The touch lingered, and my heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. That night, after tucking Caleb into bed, James walked me to my door. The street was quiet, the stars sharp above us. "Elliot," he said, his voice rough, "I don't know what this is, but I feel something. With you." My breath hitched. I'd spent weeks convincing myself I was imagining the sparks between us, that a man like James Strait, widowed, a father couldn't feel what I felt. But here he was, saying it out loud. "James." I started, but fear stopped me. What if this was a mistake? What if I was just a rebound, a distraction from his grief? "I'm not good at this," he said, stepping closer. "I've never, not with a guy. But you make me want to try." The confession hung between us, fragile and electric. I wanted to kiss him, to close the distance. But Caleb's words echoed in my mind. "When are you moving into our house?" This wasn't just about us. It was about a little boy who'd already lost so much. I took a shaky breath. "We need to be careful, James." "For Caleb." He nodded, his jaw tight, but his eyes didn't leave mine. "I know, but I'm not running from this." The next few weeks were a dance of stolen moments, coffee on the porch, late-night talks when Caleb was asleep, our hands brushing as we passed tools while fixing a fence together. Each touch felt like a promise, but doubt gnawed at me. I'd been hurt before, left by someone I trusted. And James was still grieving, still navigating a life he hadn't planned. Could he really be ready for this? One afternoon, while James was at a job site, Caleb knocked on my door, his face pale. "Elliot, something's wrong with Dad's truck." He called, and he sounded weird. "Can you help?" Panic gripped me. I grabbed my keys, and we drove to the outskirts of town, where James's truck was parked on the side of a rural road, its hood up. He was leaning against it, his face drawn, a phone in his hand. "Elliot," he said, relief flooding his voice. I didn't know who else to call. "What happened?" I asked, my heart racing. "Truck broke down, and I got a call from Caleb's school. He got into a fight. Some kid was picking on him, saying stuff about his mom." His voice cracked, and I saw the weight he carried not just as a father, but as a man trying to hold his world together. I drove them home, Caleb quiet in the back seat, James's hand resting on my knee for a moment. A silent thank you. That night, after Caleb was asleep, James opened up. "I don't know how to protect him from everything," he admitted, his voice raw. "And now, with you, I'm scared I'll mess this up too." "You won't," I said, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest. "We'll figure it out together." But the next day, trouble found us. At the grocery store, I overheard two women whispering, their eyes flicking toward James and me as we pushed a cart together, Caleb trailing behind. "That's the widower," one said. "And who's that guy with him? Seems awfully close for a neighbor." Their words stung, a reminder of the small-town scrutiny we'd face if we took this further. James heard them too. His jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything until we were outside. "People talk," he said, his voice low. "They always will. But I don't care what they think. I care about you. His words lit something in me, but fear lingered. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about Caleb, about the life we might build and the world that might try to tear it apart. Winter crept into Willow Creek, frosting the windows and turning our breath to clouds. James, Caleb, and I had settled into a rhythm dinners together. Movie nights. Caleb teaching me soccer moves in the backyard. But beneath the warmth, tension simmered. Every step toward James felt like walking a tightrope, with love on one side and fear of loss on the other. One snowy evening, James invited me to help decorate their Christmas tree. Caleb was a whirlwind, stringing lights and hanging ornaments, while James and I sipped hot cocoa, our knees touching as we sat on the couch. "Dad, put the star on," Caleb demanded, thrusting it at James. But James handed it to me instead, his eyes soft. "You do it, Elliot." I hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a try, it was their family, their traditions, and I was being woven into it. I placed the star, Caleb cheering, and James's hand found mine, squeezing gently. For a moment, everything felt perfect. But perfection never lasts. The next day, Caleb came home from school with a black eye. "Some kids said stuff," he mumbled, avoiding my gaze. "They said you and Dad are weird. That it's not normal." My stomach dropped. James, who just walked in, froze, his face a mask of anger and pain. "What did they say, Caleb?" he asked, his voice tight. Caleb shrugged, tears welling. "They said Mom would hate it. That you're forgetting her." James knelt beside him, pulling him into a hug. "Your mom would want us to be happy, buddy. And Elliot makes us happy. You know that, right?" Caleb nodded, but his eyes flicked to me, uncertain. I felt like an intruder, a crack in their fragile world. That night, after Caleb was asleep, James and I sat on his porch, the cold biting through our coats. "I didn't expect this," he said, his voice heavy. "I thought I could protect him from the world, but I can't even protect him from kids at school." "It's not your fault," I said, but guilt gnawed at me. Was I the cause of this? Was my presence hurting Caleb more than helping? James turned to me, his eyes fierce. "I'm not letting you go, Elliot. Not because of some small-minded kids or their parents. But I need you to tell me you're in this. Really in this." I swallowed, my heart pounding. "I'm in, James. All the way." He kissed me then, sudden and desperate, his lips warm against the winter chill. It was our first kiss, a collision of fear and hope, and it felt like coming home. But as we pulled apart, reality crashed back. This wasn't just about us. It was about Caleb, about a town that might never understand, about a love that would have to fight to survive. The next week, things escalated. At a town hall meeting about the upcoming winter festival, a parent stood up, her voice sharp. "I'm concerned about certain influences in our community," she said, her eyes flicking toward James. "We need to think about our kids." The room buzzed, and I felt James tense beside me. I wanted to stand, to defend us, but fear held me back. What if speaking out made things worse for Caleb? James, though, didn't hesitate. He stood, his voice steady. "My son is my priority, and who I choose to love doesn't change that. If you've got a problem, talk to me, not behind my back." The room went silent, and pride swelled in my chest. But the whispers didn't stop. At the grocery store, the park, even church, eyes followed us, judging, questioning. Caleb started withdrawing, spending more time in his room, his soccer ball untouched. One night, I found him sitting on my porch, his face tear-streaked. "Elliot, are you gonna leave?" he asked, his voice small. "Because of what people say." I knelt beside him, my heart breaking. "I'm not going anywhere, Caleb. I promise." But promises are fragile. The next day, James got a call from the school. Caleb had been suspended for fighting again, this time defending us. "He punched a kid who called you names," James told me, his voice hollow. "I don't know how to fix this." We sat in silence, the weight of it crushing. I wanted to fight for us, for this family we were building, but doubt crept in. Was love enough when it came at such a cost? Spring arrived in Willow Creek, tentative and green, but the chill in my heart lingered. James and I were closer than ever, our love a quiet rebellion against the town's whispers. But Caleb's struggles cast a shadow. He was quieter now, his spark dimmed, and every time I saw him, guilt twisted in my gut. Was I worth this fight? One morning, James suggested a camping trip, just the three of us, to get away from the gossip and reconnect. We drove to a lake an hour away, the air thick with pine and promise. Caleb perked up, skipping stones across the water, while James and I set up the tent, our laughter mingling with the birdsong. That night, under a blanket of stars, Caleb nestled between us, his voice soft. "This is the best day ever. Can we do this forever?" James and I exchanged a glance, his hand finding mine over Caleb's head. "We'll try, buddy," he said, and my heart swelled with hope. But back in town, reality waited. A petition circulated, pushed by a few parents, to protect community values at the school. It didn't name us, but the message was clear. James was furious, ready to confront the school board, but I hesitated. What if fighting makes it worse for Caleb? I asked. "He's already hurting," James said, his voice breaking. "I can't let him think we're ashamed of who we are." He was right, but fear gripped me. I'd lost love before, and the thought of losing James and Caleb was unbearable. Yet watching Caleb shrink under the weight of the town's judgment was worse. We had to fight not just for us, but for him. The school board meeting was packed, the air thick with tension. James spoke first, his voice steady but raw. "My son deserves to feel safe at school. And he deserves a family that loves him, no matter what that looks like. Elliot is part of our family, and we're not hiding anymore." I stood next, my voice shaking but clear. "I love James and Caleb. And I believe love is worth fighting for, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." The room was silent. Then a few people clapped tentative at first, then louder. Not everyone agreed, but the support, small as it was, felt like a lifeline. Afterward, a teacher approached us, her eyes kind. "Caleb's a great kid. And you two are good for him. Don't let the loud voices win." That night, Caleb ran to me, hugging me tight. "You didn't leave," he said, his voice muffled against my shirt. "I was scared you would." "Never," I whispered, tears in my eyes. "You're stuck with me, kid." The fight wasn't over. Whispers persisted, and some friendships faded, but others grew stronger. The teachers started an inclusivity program at school, and Caleb began to smile again, his soccer ball back in action. James and I grew bolder, holding hands in public, daring the world to challenge us. One evening, as summer approached, Caleb bounded into my yard, his grin wide. "Elliot, when are you moving into our house? Dad says it's about time." I laughed, looking at James, who stood on the porch, a shy smile on his face. "Is that so?" I asked, my heart full. James walked over, pulling me close. Yeah, he said softly. It's time. We moved in together that June, our lives tangling in the best way messy. Beautiful. Real. The town didn't change overnight, but we did. We built a family, not despite the challenges, but because of them. And every time Caleb asked, "Are we forever?" I'd answer, "As long as the stars keep shining." Love doesn't erase pain, but it makes it bearable. And in that little house in Willow Creek, with James's hand in mine and Caleb's laughter filling the air, I knew we'd found something worth every fight at home. A family. A love that refused to break.